On today's video, we're going to show you how we got from this to this. Alright guys, so a couple things I want to cover with you before we go into this video. First of which is this competition is now only 10 days away. So T-minus 10 days, we got to have this Miata up and running. It's a little concerning considering right now as we speak it still has an engine on the engine stand. But I'm confident we'll get that sorted out. Also, it's Halloween, so I want to say happy Halloween to everybody. I hope everybody's safe tonight. It is a Wednesday, so how crazy could things really get, right? Other than that, guys, I hope you really enjoy the video. Let me know what you think below. So to start off, we're going to pick back up where we left off last time. We've got the engine stripped down to the bare block. We are going to be prepping that block for honing. Now, I'll use these Brillo pads here to clean the cylinders along with some soapy water. And as you can see, we've got the hone out here. Also, we're going to be using that royal purple right there to keep everything lubed up. So let's get started. Before I start this, just want to put a little disclaimer out there. I am professionally trained on how to do this. I did watch a YouTube video earlier today. As you can see, we've got the cylinders all honed out now. They've got really nice looking hash marks in there. Now we're going to move on to that crankshaft and get that rear main seal sorted out. So I'm starting the process of building everything back. The first thing I want to talk about is sort of a sore subject for me. I have been beat at least 3 times in a row with these rear main seals. I've done a lot of research. I've tried to order different parts, and every time I put one in, it leaks like a sieve. So I have actually determined what the problem is. So first off, so you know what I'm working with, this is a 2-piece rear main seal. It is designed to go inside the bearing cap and compress to some extent when you bolt everything down and put it to the proper torque. Now the problem is, as you can see from the caliper here, the original seal is about 50 millimeters uncompressed. I know it's old, but still. I put the calipers on here and I'm showing a little over 53. Now you may say, well, 3 millimeters is not a big deal. Let me show you why it is a big deal. Do you see that movement right there? That's what 3 millimeters looks like when you have an oversized seal on a crankshaft. Alright, so that's going to leak. So through some research, I found that actually some Ford engineers have had to machine these down to fit that correctly. Now there's a measurement for the right amount of compression needed per the diameter of the shaft. Now the shaft seal is right here on this little grooved area. So I'm not going to get into all that measuring stuff, but I am going to cut these down till they are exactly the same as the one that come out, because it wasn't leaking at all. So now that I got the rear seal all prepped ready to go, I'm going to go ahead and clean up these main caps, replace some bearings, and get this crankshaft laid in this block. As you can see, when I installed the bearings in the main caps, the same as I'm going to do the rod bearings, you never lubricate the back side of the bearings. Only lubricate the friction surface where the shaft rides. Also, you'll see here all these little notches line up. If you don't line up these oil holes correctly, things will go sideways quick. And there we have the crankshaft and main caps installed. We got everything torqued down. We've spun the engine to make sure it still spins nice and free. So next I got to get the pistons ready to install. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go piston by piston. We're going to start in the front and do every other one all the way back till we get to the end. Now first thing I got to do is take these old rings out and clean out the ring grooves. And then we got to check our new rings and see if they're cut to fit or what we have to do there. Alright, so as you can see, we got the piston on the bench here. Now you've got 3 different rings or sets of rings. You got your 2 compression rings, and then you've got your oil ring down here. So first thing I want to do is get the rings off the piston. It's a bit of a trick, but once you get the hang of it, there's really nothing to it. You just walk them right off like that. Alright, you got to find that gap. So we'll walk this puppy right off. Alright. So there's the 2 top rings. Now this other ring here is a bit different. You'll notice it's multiple pieces. You got these little oil scrapers on the top and the bottom. We're going to go ahead and top those out first. Oh, looks like the whole thing come apart. And then we've got this spring in here that sits in the middle. And that is pretty much the piston rings. Now, don't know if you can see it, but there's all kinds of crud built up in these holes. So you'll never guess what the best tool in the world for cleaning these holes out is. A piston ring. So what we're going to do is take this old ring here and break it. See that? They're super brittle. So then we're going to take this nice factory finished edge here of this old ring, and we're just going to work it around this groove. Just make sure we got all the crud out and got them cleaned up good. We're going to wash them down here in a minute anyway, but that bottom ring's got a lot of crud in the bottom just because of the amount of blow-by this engine had. Alright, so we're going to go take them and wash them down and see how they look. So now that we got the piston all cleaned up, ready for some new rings, we want to check the rings and make sure they are the correct size. Now, as you can see, there's a little gap at the top of that installed ring. Hopefully you guys can see that. If you're not, you'll just have to take my word for it. Here's the factory ring. There's the new ring. The gap is identical. So that tells me these rings are pre-gapped, and all I got to do is throw this thing together and hope for the best. Alright, so we're going to put some rings back on the piston. I'm going to start with the oil scraper ring here at the bottom. Now you got to be careful with these rings because there's a tapered and a non-tapered. It's a straight edge versus a tapered edge. I have found the best way to determine which is which. Just give it a smell. The tapered ring definitely has a different odor than the flat ring. So make sure you put the right ring on top, right ring on the bottom. First I'm going to put the spring in. Which I think goes in here. If I'm lucky. Here we go, look at that. Alright. Now I'm going to try to walk the tapered ring into the bottom groove. I should probably mention it's been many years since I've done this. So it may take a second. So essentially, if the gap in this ring is here, you want to put the gap in this ring a third of the way around away from it, and then the same for the top ring. I'll roll those rings just a little bit further apart. There we go. Alright, now I want to put a compression ring in. Now, guess what? Ford did the same thing. You want to make sure you smell the ring to make sure you know which one is the tapered ring. And there you have it. That is a piston loaded with fresh rings. Now you see these rings are a little bit more springy than the last ones. They're definitely going to have a little bit more bite and a better seal. So that's what we're going for. So now that we've got the rings installed, I went ahead and installed the connecting rod bearings and put a little lube on them. Now we're going to get out the ring compressor and get this piston in the hole. And there you see it. I've got one piston in. I've just loosely fitted the connecting rod cap. I'm not going to torque that till I get the other connecting rod on the journal with it. So one down, only 7 more to go. So we ended up going with a comp cams. I think it's called the Mother Thumper. We're going to throw it in there and see what happens. I don't really know what to expect out of this thing. So there she is, water pump installed, flipped over, oil pan is on, and we've got some gaskets on here. All we got to do now is get ahead. And there's the big block with some cylinder heads installed. As you can see, I went ahead and put the push rods and rockers back where they go. Everything looks good so far. Those of you that have worked on a big block Ford before, at least with factory heads, can attest to this. But it's not a matter of if you're going to break an exhaust manifold bolt, but it's a matter of how many. You know, on this engine, we only broke 2 exhaust manifold bolts, so we're doing really good. That should only take a couple hours to fix. Just a couple of more pieces and we'll have this thing together. I've got all the bolts laid out for the intake. I just need to get the intake welded. So we're going to call it Kevin and see if we can't get that taken care of.
The wireless customer you are calling is not available. Please try again later.
So guys, if it feels like we're jumping around a lot and you're missing a whole lot of stuff, that's because you are. I am pressed for time, so I am going wide open. I keep forgetting to make a video. But as you can see currently, we have an high-rise intake on here. See how it's risen? High-rise, get it? Yeah? We do have the engine just about done. I just had to weld up the back of one of the manifolds, a little blob of weld there. We've made some alternative alterations to this piece of aluminum here to make an adapter for our carburetor. And that's about all we've done outside of making a really, really big mess. We do need to trim up this dipstick, I think. I think that's a little bit excessive. That might be in front of the headlight by the time I put it in the car. But all in all, we made a lot of progress this weekend. Next thing is to figure out if that's going to work or not. So here it is. The old big block is starting to finally look like a functioning engine again. Now we've only got 10 days left to this event, so it's going to be wide open from here to the finish line. But that's going to be all for this video, guys. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.